Docking request accepted.
Good morning, New Eden! Today is September 28th, 2025, and this is the Federation Frontline Report. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and my co-hosts are Samson.
Good morning, New Eden. How y'all doing?
And Nightflyer.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the show. So, Frozen, it looks like summer is over and the Keldari are back into the war zone, faction warfare. They have pushed down south, which I know you're just as happy about that as I am, because now my logistics problems are being solved.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have the war on the front here, but we also have some major things going on with the election time is up again, and so there's a lot of people that are running for CSM. I am announcing today that I am not actually going to be running for CSM this year, but I will be, definitely doing a lot of interviews, and speaking of interviews with people who are running for CSM, Teddy Shi is here in order to talk about their platform that they have for their CSM run. So, hey, Teddy, how's it going?
It's going absolutely fantastic, and good morning, New Eden, to everybody watching.
Awesome. And so tell us a little bit about your platform.
So my platform, I'm mostly based in HiSec. I do a lot of HiSec mining and host some small HiSec fleets. I also am an industrialist. I do some creation of goods that I then sell in JITA. I live just a few jumps outside of JITA, so that's kind of my main thing that I work on. So my main focus is working on improving the industry and making things better for pilots like me.
Awesome. So is there any specific group that you're with, or are you? I believe you declare yourself to be a truly independent character or candidate.
I am declaring myself as being truly independent. I've flown with several groups. I've flown in Null. I've flown here in HiSec with Hogs Corp and other smaller groups, but none of them I've really stuck around with, and I feel like none of them called to me, so I'm going to run as myself and be out there without any support or backing besides the people I find along the way.
And for those that don't know what the CSM is, can you explain what the CSM is in general, and then how they can influence the game?
So the CSM is like liaisons for the game devs. So we get elected every year by the player base, and we are sent to basically have dialogues with the EVE Online devs and other members of the EVE of CCP. We give our ideas and input. We also, if players have input they send to us, we pass along to the devs to make those changes happen. So if you have ideas or want things to change, we're usually the people to go to that can, get it to the right people, to the devs and to the teams at CCP.
Awesome. So tell me, how did you get into EVE Online? What was the, kind of take us in the Wayback Machine, give us a little history of your experience in EVE.
So for me, I kind of stumbled upon EVE back in 2018, actually probably a little bit before that. My main character was created in 2018, and that's, when I discovered the great wonderful world that is EVE, and I was hooked ever since. So I was scooped into nullsec by the Bastion, which is no longer with us, and flew out there for a short period. Just came back to HiSec, and I've basically lived in HiSec ever since. I've had some stints in null, but nothing crazy.
Cool. And do you have any kind of specific targets that you're looking to achieve if you become CSM? Is there any specific game mechanics that you're looking to to advocate for improvement, and what would those improvements be?
I think the first thing I'd advocate for is improvement to our wonderful moon resources, and ask for changes to our moon drill, the Metnox. I think it's a little bit overpowered. I've been watching the markets, and it's caused a significant shift downwards, which is great because prices have been going down, but not across the board. We've seen a pretty massive spike on some regular asteroid minerals, which have made making some things very expensive, while other things have gotten pretty cheap. So that would be the first thing I'd advocate for.
Is there anything that you believe that will be able to greatly alter industrial help? Because I heard that you said that you're into industry, you want to like boost that up a lot. I know that there's a lot of changes that have happened recently to the mineral distribution of exactly what minerals or items that you need in order to build different ships. Could you give us a breakdown of like kind of what the situation is now and what you'd be advocating to change it to?
Honestly, I believe the situation now has gotten slightly better than it was before. While yes, there are more steps involved in creating especially larger ships, and and they are a little bit more difficult to create with now needing resources from basically every single sector of space. On that same token, it actually gives a chance for other groups to actually fill in that void, like low sec groups and wormholers, to be a little bit more important in that process. So I think the changes have been sort of in the right direction. It's just trying to get the prices back to a more reasonable situation. So, changing those levels so that prices aren't absolutely skyrocketed.
Definitely. Samson, do you have any questions?
Yes, well, so you have done some PvP. One of the things that I really what that not everybody realizes, because I mean we are obviously we're pirates. I'm sorry, privateers for the militia, and we do a lot of PvP. And maybe people think oh, we don't care about industry or stuff like that, but we really do. It's very important, because it fuels the whole machine. It's all one large cohesive unit, like the economy and all that stuff. Um, wh- uh, you do faction warfare, and was it for the Galente?
Yes, my alt that is in faction warfare is 100% Galente, and she's been there at least 2 or 3 years, if not longer.
Good, good. That's the right side to be on. What's your favorite thing about faction being in faction warfare?
It's the community. I think especially Galente. There's a absolutely fantastic community. We have news sources like you guys. We have Galmill has their own Discord. There's several other factors, but like I think it's the most well built community. The war between the Caldari and the Galente is easily has the most amount of capsuleers. So you see a lot more of these communities built, and that's what I love about Galente is I feel like it's a home for the players that actually come down to low sec and fight in the fray.
Nice, yeah, I would agree. Definitely, we are. I mean, who's Amar and Mimitar? We didn't even they, they barely show up at all. What about you, Night Flyer? What do you have any questions?
Yeah, my question is mainly going through your platform, and number two, you brought out the importance of industry and how um, many new pilots come into the game, and that's usually where they go to first. And speaking from my own experience, that is very true. That's where I started too. So, what would you foresee, or what would you like to see CCP do to kind of promote industry for new characters?
I think having so promoting beyond the first missions that you can do. So when you first join the game, you do these string of career missions, and beyond that, I think it's give better resources to sort of have a direction for the characters to go. Because like once you finish those career missions, you're kind of stuck with what's next, because it doesn't. Eve is very amazing and it doesn't give you direction, but at the same time, like for new players, it can be kind of scary to want to undock and then go and find things to do, especially if you don't have a corporation or a group to be a part of. and you don't know where to look, it can be scary for these new players. I was scared when I first joined, so the biggest thing I would incentivize is either figuring out a way to better encourage new pilots to join like actually amazing new player groups like the Eve University or other similar programs, or integrate something into the UI that gives a direction, or maybe even helps and reinforce the idea of like, hey, you should like, there's this thing you can go do here. It seems like it's a pretty safe bet of something to do.
Yeah, I know. A lot of the talk recently has been on how missions um, they need some love, they need some massaging. There hasn't been a whole lot done with them in a while, and the industrial missions are, I think, a perfect example of nothing has been done to them in quite some time, and it might be time to kind of look at that to better round characters, especially new characters that are turning that. I mean, did you even know there's industry missions that you can do? It's not just security and flat and kill. So
I know they existed.
I yeah, I don't know that I've ever done one. So
I think I
don't
think
know
I
if
did
there's
a
ever incentivizing to.
like a venture mining thing once a long time ago.
I think I've done a
Yeah,
couple of
they're
shipping, and yeah, but
they're not
Oh, and
very
shipping.
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but they're not
mhm.
very interesting missions, and they don't. There's no like, you go out into these sites just like a combat mission or anything similar, and you mine, but the rocks that you mine have zero value other than to the mission. So they're really pointless, and there's no point in doing them other than to get the standing, get the loyalty points, and maybe get the small ISK. But you can make more ISK per hour being on a regular belt mining Veldspar, at least for like level ones.
Yeah, I think we're missing some of the educational aspect of it, not just the incentive.
Yeah, and
That's what those level 4 missions I think are for, is really to make money at and expand as a character. But I think the earlier missions, the level 1s, the level 2, and maybe even send to 3 should be more educational, even with the security missions
I
that
I
they do.
agree. I think right now they aren't, and I think that's something we could definitely improve upon, because you're right. Michigan missions, especially for those low stakes level 1, level 2 missions, they don't have much purpose. I mean, they have a
Mhm.
they are very unloved. As somebody who does security missions level 1 and level 2s, I don't feel like there's much of an incentive for doing them other than, like I said, for obviously personal reasons. So I think giving them more of an educational, like being like, hey, do this and this and this, to at least give a direction, purpose for a new pilot, I think would be a fantastic idea. It's great.
Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning here too, of doing the faction warfare missions, and how it is almost detrimental to you if you are an actual faction warfare um, pilot to do those because of the standing hits you take from them.
Yeah,
It's just the counterbalance is just so bad for it.
Yeah, the standing hit's really bad, and then they don't have any incentive actually on the front line. So by going out there, you're not helping flip those systems at all towards your side. Even a small, tiny percent, like, it's not doing anything to progress your group, which I think means that they're really seen as something that pilots don't do unless you're trying to get your standings up to get those
Mhm.
awards or ranks from the faction.
I think they originally talked about it. I mean, we talked with Aurora at Iceland like a couple years ago, who since left, but I know that was something that she had brought up as part of, you would have these missions and they would actually have an impact on the front line. So if you're doing this, hey, take these bullets up to this station. If you did that, not only did you complete the mission, but you also would have some impact on that war zone or that front line. So I would definitely like to encourage that. I think that would be a great
Yeah, that
improvement
would
to
be
that
pretty
system.
awesome. And I think the reason that they pivoted away towards missions is because of the new system of actually having the sites beyond plexes. So like the convoys and similar sites, where they're not sitting and waiting for a timer to tick down. It's going and attacking things in space that are tangible assets. I think that's sort of why they pivoted away from missions, but still having missions exist and then them not seeing an update is really sad, and there should be some improvements done to that side for sure.
Yeah. But I think where we're at with the CSM, you know, because they kind of go in these development cycles, and I think the devs, I guess I'm going to ask you that question. Where do you think the devs are going to be focusing within the game next year, and how can you carry forth your message into that mission?
I think next year we're probably going to see a bit more balance coming to the game, which hopefully, obviously, it's kind of a goal for every year. But I think they're going to be focusing more of their energy back towards probably either nullsec or wormholes, or they're going to be putting it back up here in highsec. They spent a lot of time over these last 2-ish years focusing on low sec and focusing on faction war and then the insurgency and all these all these amazing changes to low sec. I think they're going to bring their attention back, either back to safe space where us new players are, because newer players are, because it does need some help, or they're going to go back towards nullsec where you're starting to see a bit of stagnation. We did have some big movements down in nullsec, but it feels like it's been fairly calm compared to when I joined, 7 years ago. So I think they're going to be probably going back and seeing if they can make some improvements or make some changes to get some activity going, big wars back into that space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it is interesting how the last few years, for almost more than that, it really has not, besides the great move that happened, but that was like a voluntary move from one space to another, and put them onto the front lines that was supposed to trigger off a war that was supposed to mean quite a bit, but it kind of just was turned into a quick conquering of the floodplains, and everybody just stopping, at the castle door and just turning around and going, all right, well, we'll fight, randomly throughout the woods and the roads and stuff, but yeah, we'll leave your kingdom up and running. And I'm a big advocate. I don't know, have you ever listened to Empires of Eve or the Down the Rabbit Hole for Eve Online?
Yeah, that Down the Rabbit Hole video is amazing. It's a long video, but it's well worth the watch if you care about the history and seeing, where we've started and how we've come to where we are now. It was amazing when it came out. It's still just as amazing. It compiles every bit of anything you could possibly want to know about the player history side of EVE Online.
Yeah, so what are some of your visions that you have of how are you going to make your presence known in the gaming community? Is there anything that you've been doing, that you have done, that you events that you're going to be running? Do you run fleets? How are people going to be able, or see your interactions in game, or because a lot of these other kind of organizations have their own forums and their own discords and stuff like that are pushing for a specific person, or they they've set up a campaign site that you would have your own Discord. Is there any way to get involved in your campaign, or is there anything that you're doing to make the spotlight?
So for me, it's grassroots. It's 100%, organic based grassroots campaign. So it's going to be, I'm working on getting some fleets set up. I'm going to be sitting not far outside of Jito running some, public mining fleets to get my name out there. I'm also going to be coming on shows like this. I've got other, amazing interviews lined up to sit down and talk and be, have questions asked. People want to know want hard questions answered. That's the way I want to put that. And I'm ready to face those questions and face the battery of, why are you wanting to make this change, or why do you think this is unbalanced? And those are hard questions to answer, but I'm willing to sit down and talk, which is why I'm here and and the hard part. It's getting out there and just getting. You're right, getting your face recognized by the player base.
What do you think is one of your most controversial requests? Are you looking to like get rid of ganking in high sec, or is there do you have any controversial things that you'd like to talk about that are to say your piece on why you think it would be an improvement?
From feedback from the community that I've had thus far, the Metanox changes that I've proposed are probably the biggest. Seeing them either reduced in the ability of output, it's had a lot of pushback. I've had like on Reddit, I've had multiple like just going back and forth discussions about it. Another thing is we while I don't see ganking going away from high sec at all, I would like to see stronger enforcements provided for new bro systems. I know that Eve Online and CCP take very harshly doing anything negative to new bro systems, but I want to see additional things added to help reduce, basically just make it so that those new bro systems are as calm as possible to get these players in where they are relatively safe without having to deal with anything.
Yeah, I would say that I don't know much about the Metagnox setup or anything. I know that my big thing comes from when I was stealing from it, and it was really easy for me to steal from it. And now it's pretty much, as long as you're paying attention and you have some backing behind you, that you can get a small fleet together, you can probably save any of your assaulted skyhooks. So I came back from the day where like it was just impossible to stop us from robbing from you. Like it was gonna be a problem for you at all times. And I made quite a bit of money off of that. But I know that now from what I've heard is that it's pretty damn safe. That there are some opportunities for sure. And they've reduced the size of it, right? So now it's a lot easier to haul around. So there's a lot more of it in the game, a lot less of it probably getting destroyed while it's being stolen and the like, and a lot of it just being used. Now, what does this get used for in the game? Can you explain that?
You talking about the skyhooks or the Metnox? Because I know
The
you mentioned skyhooks.
Metnox.
So the
Oh,
Metnox
Metnox,
is
sorry,
sort
is
of
not the skyhooks. That's the moon drill, isn't it?
Yes, the Metnox is the moon drill. So it replaces an Anthanor or a Terra. I can't pronounce it, but it replaces either the medium or the large refinery outpost that a corporation or alliance can post. And um, instead of it being actively sort of maintained, it's something that's a bit more passive. You fuel it and you say pull this resource out of the moon, and it only pulls moon resources out, and it does it at a reduced rate compared to mining by hand. But in turn, it has caused a lot of pricing chaos, but also they're not easy to kill. They have relatively high shield and armor, and they have to be actively repaired when they are damaged. You have to go out there with a logistics crew and fix them by hand. So they are they're interesting compared to like other structures that you see posted up by corps or alliances, but they seem a lot more common. I've seen a lot of them in nullsec and in lowsec where you just see like every single moon is covered in them because they're expensive, but apparently not expensive enough, or I guess cheap enough to replace when they do get destroyed, that they just keep popping up.
And so because I guess it's meganomatic gas that fuels them, right? Isn't that one of their fuel sources that comes from skyhooks?
Yes.
What is
Yes.
your feeling on like skyhooks? And I know that that's in a small way does tie into what what happens with these drills.
I haven't had a ton of experience with the skyhook mechanic, and so I don't have too much knowledge on it. Um, I know that they are becoming more common as time goes on, especially to bigger groups, but I don't know much more beyond.
And so, kind of talking about that, is there areas, what do you think your weakest area in the game is? And why do you think that it doesn't matter for your CSM run? Or, like, how are you going to use it as an advantage?
I think my weakest area is going to be like null sec knowledge or low sec knowledge too. Like my focus is up here in high sec space where you have all the newer players, and I think that's not too much of a hindrance. I think it does probably make me a little bit less appealing to people who are voting from those areas, but in turn, a lot of Goonswarm or the Initiative is going to have a candidate or two that they're going to run. Pandemic Horde, and Panda Fam is going to run their own candidates, so they're going to be represented by well knowledge, people who have way more knowledge about those sectors of space than I could ever dream of. So I don't think that's a big hindrance. It does mean that I'm not going to fall very high on, if I even fall on any of their recommended ballots, but it's okay because here is where industry is. It's where some of the richest players live, or at least do a lot of their business in high security space, because it's just a lot easier to do business up here. And business, trading, and industry are the biggest economic sectors of this game by absolute landslide. So I don't think it's going to affect my campaign as much as somebody else, for sure.
Was it just me, or was he a little bit robot-y, or am I going robot-y?
I think you all are for me.
Yeah, he just cut out.
I think that I'm seeing a little bit of it as well. I'm wondering, is it because I'm seeing the stream is fine? So is it Discord maybe that it's just hating on
Discord.
us?
I'm gonna guess Discord.
I blame
Discord's fault.
It's always Discord's fault.
We'll push through.
Yes. So, one of the questions that I did have was, who do you think your competition is in this regard? So, because I would put like Oz as a person of like, why should I vote for you over voting for Oz when it comes to having a high sec influence?
So between me and Oz, like we're both well positioned candidates. We both are focused on the market and industry and whatnot. But he is looking from a top down view. His knowledge and smarts is in market and seeing how the market moves. I'm looking from the bottom up. I'm the person actually making the products, going out there and producing in relatively large amounts, and actually creating and making the markets move. He watches and he buys and invests in certain things and hoping that he can make money. I build because there's a necessity. So it's a completely different perspective, and I think that's what makes me a lot different compared to him, because he is more for the generic, looking over the whole picture. I'm looking at a specific point.
What would you say, like, what are some of the big differences on how you want to change the game compared to how he wants to change the game?
I think the biggest thing is that I'm interested in these smaller changes that will, that might not make the markets jump or create any absolute instability. He is interested in seeing things move and become more profitable for him and and other big other very rich and big spenders that are in the game, that find that's their play style. There's nothing wrong with that, but for me, I'm here for just making things more accessible for everybody, and and if that causes prices and costs to drop where prices aren't, prices are not much for the investment but more for the person actually building the product, then so be it.
Awesome. And so, Samson, do you have any final questions here?
So what interaction do you have, if any, between you? I know you have a faction warfare alt, but between faction warfare and your high sec life, industry wise, do you support faction warfare at all with your industry?
Yes. I build specifically. I build a lot of Glinty ships that I move out to like Dudixie and other trade hubs. I also build ammo that I put on my alt character to turn into faction ammo and then resell. So that's kind of my two big things is making stuff that I can either produce and then put to the front lines as close as possible, like do Dixie or another market hub, or I turn it into goods and then I turn my LP into goods that I take back to Jita because people love good old Federation Navy ammo out there in Jita, surprisingly.
You should help bolster the Haid market too. Haid less.
Yeah, I should, but that's a bit far. It's a pretty easy trip to do Dixie in my opinion, but going all the way out to there, it's a little bit more sketchy.
Yeah,
A little bit more
I know a
sketchy,
few
yeah.
reasons why it's sketchy. But if you get
At
blue to
least
the right
three,
people,
huh?
it's less sketchy.
Yeah.
That's yeah, cool, awesome.
So we've been talking about the in-game stuff. I'd like to, kind of pick your brain a little bit about some of the metagame, the stuff that happens outside of the video game, such as meetups. What, if anything, do you think CCP could do to help promote these kind of this function of the game? Or what's been your experience with that?
Well, as somebody who's actually had a chance to put on an event, I think the biggest thing they could do is bring back they used to have an actual fleet up system that you were able to get like specific merch and gear that you could have out for these events, and they don't have that system anymore. They still have like the game the in-game codes for like stuff in-game, but you don't have like actual merch other than like what they choose or choose not to send you. And it's also not the easiest system to get into. For me, I've reached out to support, and I'm like, "Hey, Eve support, like, what am I supposed to do to like, have any, to put on a show, to do an event?" And I was able to get in contact with CCP Lumi. She's absolutely amazing. But as somebody who's starting out, like that's kind of the best. Right now, it's the best system. I think they could definitely be improved by bringing something similar to an Eve partner system for people who want to put on events or put on regular events already.
Yeah, I think again, it's one of those things that's important to me as somebody who really likes this game, and has made it such a part of their lives that if there was an easier function to promote meetups and that kind of mechanism where I can meet people in my community that also like this game, because short of going on like a, I don't know, a Facebook post, I mean, would that even work? I don't know.
Yeah,
It just
right now, like I mean, like we can even look at the community posts that they post bi-monthly. Like you don't they don't even include a section in there for the events every single post. And even if they just
Right.
moved it to being a sort of thing that they at least post in there, bi-monthly, saying, hey, like this is the next events for the few weeks, and then also posting stuff that's a bit farther out, I think that would help because it seems like they post like the in-person events quarterly, and it just doesn't get enough coverage because there are events that happen a lot more often than that. I can think of the Toronto meetup for a big example. They meet every month ish, and while but it doesn't get covered like the big events do, like Vegas and others.
And even those are very light on the advertising. Like the only one that really gets good advertising at this point is FanFest. Like anything else is
Yeah.
pretty much
like
like minor. statements that are made at some point. There's no big lead up or a big promotional year round, push or anything. Nothing talking about any weekly events. That is one thing I feel is sorely needed for sure.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
and
lacking.
I
all
agree
around.
for sure.
And Cam Guru does have a question here. They feel like the automatic moon drill is ruining the market for high sec and would like to see this removed from R4 moons. This would correct the pyrite issue and bring back the R4 products. What do you think?
I think that's actually a pretty decent idea. I mean, either reducing the output across the board or just removing its ability to be anchored to R4 moons does make a lot of sense, because the moon goo price, or the resource price, is in the tank, and pyrite price, like he says, is kind of through the roof, and it's one of the most important pieces to make anything beyond very minor goods. I had to buy a bunch of it off the market actually 2 days ago when I was last in, because there's not enough pyrite to go around. So I think that'd be smart to make it so that R4 moons can only be mined by stations, because then you would see it less versatile. It would be more specific to moon goo only, especially because R4 resources are available in those higher tier moons as well.
Interesting. So yeah, any last questions before we give you a final spotlight to Teddy?
I think I'm good.
Nope, I'm good. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, dude.
So yeah, Teddy, thanks for coming on. It's been really awesome to talk to you. So I want to make sure that we have a final spotlight, though, for you, so that if you want to give out any shout-outs to anybody, if you have any projects or any meetups or anything, websites or anything that you're working on, and then, of course, if you want to give any more explanation into your platform and what you're passionate about, what you're going to be bringing to the CSM.
Well, first off, I would like to start by saying thank you for having me on your show. It's been an absolutely wonderful time. I also would like to point to Eve, Michigan. We have a website and a Discord. The website's kind of not the most amazing thing, and it needs updated, but the Discord is the best place to be if you want to directly interact with me and the community I'm putting on. I'm planning to do another meetup in January, depending on how CSM election time goes, because I know that they do their actual meetup sometime in the wintertime. So for now, it's just sort of reach out. If you want to reach out, you can reach out to me in game at Teddy. My main game name is Teddy Shi. If you want to reach me on Discord, I'm gameable.17 on Discord. Or you can reach out to me anywhere else you find me, whether it be in space or online. Just reach out. And hopefully I will make your ballots. At least hopefully make a spot on the ballot as the industry-focused candidate for EVE Online.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you all for listening or watching and have a great night.
Good night, New Eden.
Hi, New Eden.
Have a fantastic night, New Eden.